Welcome to this week's Eccentric Minute, brought to you by Eccentric. Our first exercise here in the Eccentric Minute is the K-box squat. This is the granddaddy of all of them, guys. One that we use at all levels of our training with a vast array of athletes. Couple big tips. I like to use something for our hands to support it. Make sure that strap is completely taut at the top. Don't leave it short, don't leave it long. What I really like the most about it, guys, the isoinertial wheel, we're going to use this with other squats as well. The other squats are working to depth. These, we're going to get to an athletic position and work our way up. Push hard and make sure you're fighting to hit that braking force. As we cut reps, we usually cut depth as well to make it a little bit more transferable to what we do. This is an awesome exercise that I can't recommend enough. Throw it in your training. It's going to be great for you and your athlete. I really hope you enjoyed this week's Eccentric Minute. Make sure you check them out at eccentric.com to find out everything you need about the K-box and the K-pulley. Being a strength and conditioning professional requires constant pursuit of better knowledge, better methods, and better means. But what if there was a place where strength and conditioning coaches could learn from some of the most innovative practitioners in the world, such as Jeff Moyer, Lachlan Wilmot, William Wayland, James the Thinker Smith, and Keir Wenham Flatt? Well, you could find multiple lectures from each of these top-level coaches and a few lectures and examples from yours truly as well, all in the Strength Coach Network. The Strength Coach Network is going to bring you well over 100 different lectures from some of the top practitioners in the world to be your one-stop shop for your continuing education and professional development. So hop on over to strengthcoachnetwork.com/CVASP today and get your 48-hour trial for only $1. That's strengthcoachnetwork.com/CVASPS to get your 48-hour trial for only $1. I look forward to seeing you in the Strength Coach Network. Hello and welcome to the podcast. Today, guys, I get to sit down and talk with Clay Bewley about progressing athletes and developing a training program at the high school level. Clay is in a really unique environment where he is training up to 90 athletes in one group, and he breaks it all down for us. He's going to get into what his progressions are, how he sets up the room, how he builds his program so that there are places where they know they need to be to coach the kids and how they can keep things flowing, and how all of this is built around his general training principles and building relationships with the young people he gets to work with. This is really an awesome talk, guys. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Let's get right to it. Let's get to the real deal, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Digging the hat.
Hey,
shout out to Schofield.
Right. Hey, always got to advertise every chance I get. This organization has literally changed my life, and I have a lot that I owe to them. And so every chance I get, I always got to represent, and I got to show it off.
Yeah, man. Shout out Coach Sco. Shout out Rich. You know, those guys have done a great job with the rest of the crew building that. For those of you that don't know what the National High School Strength and Conditioning Association is, they're doing things to help really the backbone of what we do, and that is the coaches that get to work with the high school kids and build the base. So hopefully all the fake confusion and kind of BS complaints of strength coaches in college can go away. It's like, oh, well, they can't squat and bend and do pull-ups. But more and more can do that than we like to say. And a lot of that has to do with them and guys like you, Coach, and the long-term development plan that you got put together, which is something I want to talk about today.
Yes, sir. I'm excited for that. And just a little shout for those of you guys who don't know about the National High School Strength Coach Association. It is an organization designed to educate, uplift, and empower all high school coaches, whether you're a strength coach or not, and all high school students. On average, between my in-school class and my after-school groups, I trained, before all this went down, I would train over 300 kids a day. And so 300 plus me. Now, that's not 300 at one time, but that's 300 throughout the day. I'd have classes of about 50, and then I team teach another class that has close to 90 kids in it, and then after school anywhere from 75 to 130 kids after school every day. And so it's a tremendous amount of volume of kids, but it's all kids getting better. And I got kids that are Division I, Power 5, Conference 5 level athletes, and kids who can barely tie their shoes. without falling over. And so you have all these ages, all ranges, all put together, but the whole goal is making everybody better. And the big moniker I have in my program is everybody gets 1% better every single day. And if we do that and compound that with enough time and consistency, you're going to accomplish a goal. Now, I try not to put unrealistic expectations into the kids' minds, because in reality, we're going to be graduating about 250 kids out of my school this year, and only about 15 of them are going to be signed to go play at the next level, whether that, be a junior college, an NAIA, Division 1, 2, 3, doesn't really matter. And so the main goal is teaching and helping them to understand these goals and these lifelong applications of, one, staying active, staying fit, but also knowing what it's like to put in good work, knowing what it's like to have consistency, knowing what it's like to have energy, knowing what it's like to put in work when you don't feel like you're wanting to work. Just these great life skills that we're teaching through the weight room that you can apply into whatever you're going to do after high school, whether that's college, workforce, trade school. It's about mentoring and building up the kid more than it is about anything else. The weight room is just a fun way to do it.
No doubt, no doubt. So let's get into that, man.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that, because now, is your school 9 through 12 or 10 through 12?
9 through 12. It's a public school. So here in Arizona, we have 6 classifications of school: 1A through 6A. 1A is you got like 25 kids in the whole school, so you got what you got. And then 6A goes all the way up to 35 and 4,000 students in the school. And so pretty big ranges. I'm a 4A school, and so I believe the new classifications, that's 1,100 to 1,800, and my school has about 1,150 kids in it. And so we're one of the smallest, if not the smallest 4A in the state, and we're constantly playing schools that have 500, 600, 700 more kids than us. And so our edge is going to be, how do we get the most out of our students? How do we get the most out of our athletes? How do we keep our athletes healthy so they can be participating, so they can be playing? And a little demographics of my school. It's a suburb school, upper middle class community, is about 6% of the school, with about 40% of the school bussed in from surrounding areas. And about 65% of my athletes are multi-sport, 2-3 sport athletes. And then outside of that 65%, another about 25-30% of it is singles, just one sport kids that play year round. And then the rest are just kind of kids who, really like this one sport, and they do other things throughout the year, whether that be academic, band, whatever. I don't really care, just as long as they're involved. And so one of the things that's different about my program that maybe some other coaches don't like or wouldn't be interested in is I actually don't do off-season training. I only do year-round training, because 90% of my athletes are either playing and are in season with their club, or they are multi-sport, so they're in season with the sports they have at school. A lot of my multi-sport athletes are 3-sport athletes. And so I have to do my best to be able to manage that stress bucket. I know we always, I'm sure you do this with your kids as well. You draw the stress bucket and water flowing in. You have to be able to let as much water out of the stress bucket as you can. You can only take so much stress in your stress bucket. And so lots of times with my club athletes especially, their volume is way higher when they're not playing for the school than where they are playing for the school. There's horror stories out there. One of my softball girls told me how her club practices 3 times a week, 3-hour practices, and her Tuesday and Thursday evening practices go from 6 to 9. School starts the next day at 7:30, by the way. Yeah. So I have to find. Important. Yeah. I have to find. Yeah, I know, right? If you have to take 3-4 hours for a practice, then maybe you should rethink practice plans. Just saying. But I got to find a way to manage their stress levels, and I feel like it would be negligent on my part to ignore the outside stresses that they have. And so that's why we do a lot of in-season training for 9 months. During the summertime, it's a little different because they're not sitting down for 8 hours, and I can actually program a little bit more intense off-season training. And so that's where the consistency really comes in. We really just cycle through 2-week microcycles I have a 4x3, 3x3, and a 2x3 tier, depending on what the demands are for the sport, what the schedule is. And so like my classes are on a 4x3 tier. I got a couple of teams that come in 3 times a week. They're on a 3x3. They're on a 3x3 tier. And then I have some teams that they're, due to the situation, they're only able to come in twice a week. And I'm only able to get them for 35, 40 minutes twice a week. And they're on a 2x3 tier. And so I basically try to get as much as I can out of the main component lifts and try to get as much bang for my buck out of their training as I can. And so 90% of our athletes do about 90% of the same movements. Everybody's squatting, everybody's doing a deadlift variation, everybody's doing pushes, everybody's doing pulls, everybody's doing weighted carries, everybody's doing anti-rotation work. And so whether that looks like is going to then depend on the training age of the athlete. Like for example, in my classes, in my beginner classes, everybody starts out goblet regardless. And we usually stick on a triphasic scheme, 2-week eccentric, 2-week isometric, 2-week concentric, and they stick with the goblet until it looks pretty good and they're able to sustain it for a load an entire workout. And if it looks pretty good and there's a decent weight, usually about 50 to 70 pounds, if they can handle that, then I'll let them graduate to a front squat. And they might stay front squat for 7-8 weeks until they're able to get close to their body weight in a front squat, and then they're able to graduate to a back squat. And with the reps set schemes, once we get out of the triphasic, I basically just rotate microcycles of a week, sets of 5 for a week, sets of 4 for a week, sets of 3, sets of 2, and then we recycle that. And we just keep on going through that model over and over again. And the consistency and the focus on the movement over the weight. I saw Coach DeChant just joined. So, Coach, thanks for writing that book. It really changed my view on training. So if you heard that, thank you for that. Just focusing that movement over the maxes and the constant refinement of movements yields pretty good results. Our training is not complex, not in the slightest. We just focus on doing really, really, really perfect reps every single time. And if it looks bad, take it down. If it looked good, take it up a little bit. And just these slow, fine refinement of the movements over 2, 3, 4 years produces good results.
Yeah, I think it's funny. This is the 6th one of these that we've been able to do this week. And the one constant is slow, simple, specific adaptation to imposed demands and progressive overload.
Yeah, and honestly, with a 14 to 18-year-old, we don't need to get into specifics. We need to build that base. We need to build that general physical capacity that whatever they want to do, they're sustained enough that they can do it. And that involves getting out there and teaching them how to run, get out there teaching them how to move, and just mastering the basics. And one tweet that got, a couple people upset, but I put it out and I don't really care because it needed to be said, is, why do we see collegiate and professional strength coaches teaching these incredible athletes how to master the basic human movements, but yet we see these rando trainers out there making these overcomplex movements for 10-year-olds? Which one needs to be happening exactly? Yeah. And so, if you're this incredible high-level athlete, can you get away with that type of stuff? Absolutely, because you're just that incredible of an athlete. But that being said, we're dealing with general populations here, especially at the high school range, where you take a young lady who has never entered a weight room before, and she just hammered out a set of 5 perfect goblet squats with a 50-pound weight, and she says, wow, that's the biggest I've ever done. We just got a win right there. And we instilled confidence. We instilled growth in that young person that, they may have never gotten before. I've had so many times where I've told students that, hey, I'm really proud of you for the growth you made. And they are almost shocked. Like, what do you mean? Because nobody's ever told them that they're proud of them before, outside of a parent, or a teacher has never told them that. Or so they've never heard those sayings. And so it's really amazing the type of growth that can happen in the high school realm when good training happens.
No doubt. I think too that another thing that is really rewarding with that was when they come back. If you do have the kids that get to go to college and they do well, in the weight room, and they come back and they're really proud of kind of being ahead of the curve. And
oh yeah, I had one young man who he signed to Kansas for baseball, and he came back over winter break. They got done with their off season, and he asked if he could get in the weight room a little bit. Absolutely, open up. We need to lift together. And I asked him about the program. He's like, Coach, we did the exact same stuff. The only difference is their stuff is just a lot nicer than your stuff. Yeah. That is true. But he's like, yeah, it was kind of nice that the coach didn't have to get on me because my squat was bad and my split squat was doing pretty good, and I could RDL and I could handle a decent load on a chin up. It was kind of nice that he didn't have to hark on me as much, and he was able to bust the ass of somebody else. He's like, that was really nice.
Krabby, what's up, homie? One of my guys just jumped on. No, but I think that what I think is really interesting about that too is it's like this whole idea of everything needs to be nice, everything needs to be shiny, everything needs to be pretty, everything needs to be new. Bro, a bar's a bar. It's 20 kilos. Like, gravity is gravity. You know, Ham brought that story up. Was it Monday when I talked to Todd, where he had a guy that, like, his big thing was, it's just gravity, man. Like, squatting's just gravity. Pull-ups are just gravity. Like, right now, of all the times, right, to talk about this, like, my workout this morning was just an EMOM with a kettlebell and goblet squats and swings, man. You know, 20 minutes of it, 10 reps each, and it's just weight, it's just gravity, you know, and that's all the work is.
And honestly, that goes to the point of how valuable intent is. Intent has to be there. You could have a great program, great facility, great equipment, but if the intent is not there, you're not going to get very much out of it. And I'm very lucky. I have a fantastic room and a fantastic space that I can handle up to 50, 60, 70 kids in there. A little over about 3,500 square feet. I got 12 platforms on 6 half racks, 40 yards of turf, and kind of an open turf area. And so I'm able to handle a lot of kids because I have a great room. But you know what? If I didn't have that great room, I'd find a way for those kids to still get the best out of it, because that's the culture that we're trying to instill. That intent is king. That the quality of what you're doing is more important than anything else. And what happens a lot of times, and I know this happens at the college level because I spent 7 years at the collegiate level before I moved to high school. You know, everybody just wants to focus on, you know, putting as much weight on the bar and moving it with that. And that ain't what it's about. It's about how well can whatever weight you have, move it to the best of your ability, and then that weight you're lifting will then become the weight you want to lift eventually. And a lot of freshman males hate it when I was told them, like, hey, you got to start with this 30-pound goblet. Stronger than that. Well, you got to prove it first. And so as we slowly refine, that 30-pound goblet turns into a 90, turns into a 135 front squat, turns into a 225 front squat, turns into a 275 back squat, turns into a 315 front squat over years. And I think a lot of people try to do too much too quick. And that's where a lot of bad things happen. When we chase numbers, we ended up getting injuries. When we chase movements, usually we get pretty good numbers from it. And I'm very proud of my kids, and I'm very proud of my athletes who, you know, our numbers may not be as big as other schools, but every number that's put up there is a quality number. And when it comes time for those classes and comes time for our testing, I've actually changed this up since I've been there. I used to do 7 weeks of training before our first initial test and then test at the end of the semester. I don't do that anymore. We just keep on training all the way through and then do a test at the end of the semester, so that way they get about 18, 19 weeks of training before they have to worry about handling a sub-maximal load for reps. I do a 1 to 5 rep test on bench and squat, and then a 1 to 4 on a clean variation that they're allowed to drop, because I don't like the kids using straps. I just feel like it's too much danger for not enough return. And
Yeah.
so it's not a traditional test, but you know what? It's all good, because we're not testing weightlifters, we're testing athletes, and we're just using weightlift to enhance the athleticism. And so, like, for those kids, we'll get some numbers just through data monitoring and just through tracking their loads. And so when the district asks for what I'm doing, and I can give this initial data, and then the final test will show the growth and improvement. And everybody gets better. And you know what? Whether it's 1 pound or 100 pounds, I've had kids who have gone up 100 pounds on their max total over a course of a semester, and then I've had kids who go up 15 pounds. I don't even care how much you go up, just as long as you're getting better and you learn the lesson of consistency, work, and discipline yields positive results, then we got to win.
Kind of want to backtrack a little bit, because there's one thing, like, right now, intent is kind of one of those sexy buzzwords when it comes to training.
Yeah.
But we also like to all talk about how we're moving slow and minimal effective dose, and the whole idea of the movement matters most. But those are two things that can definitely bash heads, right? Like, intent can get in the way of technical mastery. So how, especially with the younger people, have you kind of balanced that, like, teeter-totter a bit?
Well, like for me, I always define intent as the technical mastery. Your main focus, and maybe I'm using intent wrong, but your main focus of the day is this technical mastery, is this mastering the movements. And so kind of when we go over our classes or our workouts, whatever we're doing, I'll tell them what I'm looking for, the main goal of what we're trying to accomplish within that day. And whatever that main goal is, that's what I'm looking for. And one thing I really try to do the best of my ability, I'm not great at getting every single kid, but I'm good at getting most of them with this. When I see that effort and when I see that they're really working and they're really trying for that intent on that technical mastery, I'll go over and I'll reward them for that. And it could be as simple as a fist bump, just going up to a young man who, he may only have 95 pounds of that bar, but we're doing a 3-1-1 tempo, and he's really working hard to master that 3-second eccentric. And it may not look perfect, but it's foundational, and he's getting better from it. When that set's done, just going to give him a fist bump, like, hey man, I saw you working so hard on there. Great job. I'm proud of you. Just those little tiny moments for someone who's so impressionable. Oh my gosh, that makes the world of difference. And they remember those. But on the flip side, they remember when maybe that doesn't happen. And so, like, for example, if there's a young person who is working their butt off and you do not give them any sort of recognition, they remember that, like, man, this dude doesn't care about me. And I really try to do my best that every kid who comes in there, when I see them doing good, I try to let them know that I notice them doing good. I'm not perfect, but I feel like I do a good job at trying to recognize that and trying to acknowledge that, because dang it, adults need to hear it from their bosses. Everybody likes positive results, positive praise. Kids are even more so. They need to hear it sometimes. I put out a video earlier this week because a lot of kids have been, doing whatever at-home workouts or training in the park, whatever they're doing. And I just made a 45-second video just saying, hey, I love you guys and I appreciate all the hard work you're doing. I don't see it all, but I know it's happening, and I want to say thank you and I appreciate you. And oh my gosh, I got so many messages from parents, from other teachers, from the students, just saying thank you for taking that time to recognize it. And just that little bit, and that's where relationships get built, is recognizing the work and recognizing the intent of the kid. And so that's how I marry it, is I recognize that intent, and then I address the intent, and then that in turn creates those behaviors that they want to improve, but at the same time it helps build my relationship with those students, if that's the way to answer the question.
No, totally. And appreciation is really an underlooked and underutilized thing, especially today.
Absolutely. And honestly, we can say, especially as strength coaches, that we're very intrinsically motivated, which we are. But who doesn't like hearing from a boss or an associate or somebody else like, hey man, you're doing a great job. Thank you so much for being here. Who doesn't appreciate that? Everybody does. That's what good leaders do, is they empower those that they lead.
No doubt. So let's talk more about how this progression goes, because I think that
Yes.
all too often people, they try to throw the baby out with the bathwater when you've got actually time to do that, because it's a matter of understanding that what we in the physical preparation side, Matt and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, MJ, like what our viewpoint is on these things is a little bit different than the sport coach, in a sense that taking the 4 years to develop them, especially from 14 to 18, is probably more important than taking the 4 years to develop them technically and tactically in the sport, just because of everything that they're going through.
So when I create my programs, especially for the classes, I create a 20-week program. because that's how long our semesters are. And so then I be able to account for when our breaks are, when our holidays are, and those become our download weeks just because they're not there anyways. So might as well take advantage of that rest when I got it. Or if there's a long distance in between those breaks, then I'll add in a little download week. So usually we get out of those 20, usually between holidays and everything else like that, usually we get 3 downloads all throughout. And so we usually stick in about 6 week. We usually stick in about 6 week mesocycles with 2 week microcycles in there. And then from there, if they're just starting, they start with dumbbell or kettlebell variations. And then once they get to about half their body weight or somewhere around there, then they'll be able to graduate into the barbell movement. And then once that barbell movement happens, usually they stick within a front squat. And this is our squat variation. And so with the front squat, I usually have them front squat until they're able to handle body weight on a front squat. And once they handle body weight on a front squat, that's when I'll allow them to go over to the back squat. And if the back squat doesn't look good, they just go right back to front squat. And they just stick on those molds, stick on those molds, stick on those molds until they hit those ratios. And then we go from there. And that does vary a little bit. Like, for example, if I got a kid who's like 295, then I'll change that up a little bit. That I'm not going to keep him on a front squat until he hits 300 pounds. That's a pretty big front squat. And so I'll allow that athlete to graduate to the back squat once he hits about 0.75% body weight. And then from there, just slowly refining the movement patterns, constantly coaching up. And that's pretty much it. It's not anything too technical. It's just really mastering movements with every single workout, with every single training session. And so that's, for example, our squat. When it comes time for our Olympic lifting, I do a bottoms up and a bottoms down approach. So learn from the hinge, learn from the floor. And on our 2 dynamic effort days, one's from the hang position, one's from the floor position. And usually we begin with an RDL and just a clean deadlift with light weight. And then once we get kind of settled on that, either with dumbbells or kettlebells, we'll graduate into eccentrics with barbells, eccentric lowering from a hinge position, eccentric lowering from an up top position, and then we'll throw in isometric holds to be able to reinforce those sticking points then throughout. And then when we get into our concentric phase, we learn how to jump with the bar from hang jump shrugs, hang high pulls. And usually I don't allow kids to catch any sort of Olympic movement, and we mainly just stick with the clean. I don't do barbell snatches that much. I feel like it's a little too technical for athletes, and I can get a really good dynamic effort out of a dumbbell snatch. I just feel like it's just a little bit safer. Some coaches might disagree, but that's the quality of the coaching that's being put on. I know some coaches that do a tremendous job teaching the snatch to their athletes, and they do a great job. I feel like I can get somewhat good with that with a dumbbell. That's just me personally. And then usually it's about 8 weeks before they start catching their Olympic movements. And then from there, they don't do any sort of test of Olympic movements until they have another 8 or so weeks to test. And we just take that semester model and then recycle it through the next semester, recycle through the next semester, and recycle it through the 4 years while they're there. And so I look at it as a constant refinement of movement, just like as you would refine a piece of steel, you'd have to temper it, take out the slag, take out the imperfections, shape it, heat it, shape it, heat it, shape it. That's the kind of metaphor I like with our training, that we're just constantly refining throughout the entire time, throughout their entire 4 years.
So after somebody's ticked a box, right? So let's say I've gone through the goblet squat, through the front squat. We've gone through that semester, and we come back the next time. Do I start back with the goblet, or am I just starting at the front squat? And how does that alter how you're programming it?
And so usually when that happens, usually we're able to graduate them from our more beginner level classes into our more advanced classes or into our more advanced after school groups. And so like with that, you've already checked that box, and then a break usually comes. And then from there, I'll have them start on front squat, and then they'll go back through the same triphasic movement, but they'll just start at the front squat, if that makes sense. Or they'll start back squat.
So like,
my more advanced
once you kick the goblet box, you just move on.
Yeah,
you don't have to come back and revisit it unless there's a technical mastery issue with that exercise in front of you.
And usually it's good, even for more advanced lifters, it's good to start, maybe not with the goblet, but it might be good to start again with the front, just to make sure that we can refine, because you might have lost something over those 2 weeks, and you might need a little bit of practice. Or you might have gotten a little banged up and you've had to sit out a little bit of time just from your sport. And so then we'll kind of keep in more of an advanced level. And then once their front squat's looking good, then we'll go straight to the back squat. And so it's not so much that here's a worksheet, you have to tick all these boxes. It's more of, okay, it's looking good, we can move on. Oh, it's not looking good, let's kind of move it back. So it's very fluid in the movements, just like how my programming becomes, especially after school groups, becomes a little bit fluid, because it might be, we were supposed to have 45 minutes. Well, we had to have these team meetings. Now you got 30 minutes. And so I have to change up my programming and what we're doing that day for that. Oh, looks like somebody doesn't like eccentric front squats over there. It's tough. It's okay, though. They'll get better from it.
I know who does, Thomas Evans, because he's one freaking strong MFer. But but no, I think that's, let me ask you this question, because
Yes, sir.
I'm in a situation where I've got groups of kids in a room that's probably built for 16 to 24 kids, and we end up having like 30 kids a night show up. So how do you handle a group of 90, bro?
Okay,
how does that even like remotely work?
Well, it is organized chaos, and for anybody who works in the high school realm and with large groups, it's always going to be organized chaos. And so what I usually do is within the 3 tiers, I'll go ahead and separate it out so that tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and then I do more horizontal programming versus vertical programming. And so let's say station 1 of lower body tier, that's our main lower body movement of the day. And so, like, for example, let's just say if it's a squat, for example, then there'll be that squat, and then station 2 will be a contrast jump, so I can get a little plyometric movement in there, whether that just be a vert jump in place, rocket jump, box jump, something to kind of contrast that movement. And then station number 3 is a complementary movement. So I do a lot of push-pull programming. So for every one push, I try to keep one pull. So if I have more of an anterior dominant exercise, I'll try to pair it later on with a posterior dominant exercise. And then station 4 is either a rest station, mobility, core stability, something along those lines. And so 1 goes to 2, 2 goes to 3, 3 goes to 4, 4 goes to 1, and they stay within one confined little unit within the work at that station. And I have that for our upper body, lower body, total body sections, and whatever becomes the main emphasis, just with the tier systems, becomes a tertiary emphasis the next day. And so that way I'm able to handle up to 60 kids in that group, and everybody stays really confined. And I tell them, like, okay, you got 12 minutes to get your work done, stay within your group, stay moving. And then I'm on the floor, get as many rounds as I can in, so I can keep and monitor everybody to the best of my ability. And then 12 minutes done, switch. Station 1 goes to station 2, station 3, 2 goes to 3, 3 goes to 1, and that we were able to get that through in about 36, 40 minutes.
So, but in some of that programming too, there's some areas that would require a little less safety attention, if you may.
Yes. And usually that's our tertiary emphasis. And so, like, for example, that safety attention, let's say if it's this is one of my favorites for tertiary upper body. Set of 5 weighted push-ups, 10. I have two lat pull down stations, not enough to get everybody, so we do band lat pull downs instead from cable crosses. That way I'm able to get 6 band lat stations set up, band lat pull downs with 3 raises, and then the rest spot is loading the plate on top of somebody's back for push-ups. And so right there, I can keep those 4 kids in a very confined area, and the safety it's always important, but it's not as much of an emphasis. I can trust my kid, and if you can't do a weighted push-up, just do a set of 5 regular push-ups, and then that load station becomes a rest station. You know what? I'm going to trust that you, as a young man, young lady, can be able to safely handle that, 5 push-ups, 10 lat pull downs, 5 each 3-way raises with 5 or 10 pound plates. I'm going to trust that you're going to be able to do that. And, I haven't, in 3 years, I haven't had an issue with that. And so, yeah, no, knock on wood, right? And then from there, that allows me to keep my focus more on the higher technical lifts than anything else along those lines.
No, man, I think that's brilliant. So, I guess the last question, unless people want to start firing some out for us.
Yeah, please. And I saw some of my athletes hop on. Juju, I saw you hop on. Give me a shout out if you're still here, Juju.
Um, what can college coaches do better for the high school guys?
What can college do better for high school?
Because everybody asks the other way.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask it. Let me reverse it. What can a college coach do better for a high school coach?
And this is going back to NHSSCA. What can college coaches do better for high school coaches? There is a surplus in our industry of great coaches at the collegiate level, and there's not enough jobs for everybody. I know you've hired when you opened up a position, you're probably getting anywhere from 100, 150, 200, 250, 300 applicants for a single position. Is that not? That's not 200.
A position that wouldn't be exaggerated.
Yeah, so like it's honestly working college guys help the high school guys out. If you're a young coach or an established coach that wants more job security, if you got a family, come join us, honestly, because there's so many good schools that need good people in there. And it's not that they don't have bad people in there. It's that that person may not have the background, the expertise. Just like if you take me and you put me in an art class, I'm sorry, that's going to be a shitty art class. I'm going to do my best, but our final project might be the finger turkey.
It's all abstract, dude. It's all abstract.
Oh, abstract? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. But along those lines, that's not my expertise. That's not my background. I'm going to do my best, but it's probably not going to be what those kids really need. Take somebody with that background, that knowledge, put them into that experience. That's where you're going to help out, because you're going to be impacting a tremendous amount of kids. Between my classes, my after school, and kids who train, I have about 500 kids in my program. And that's a tremendous amount of kids. Now, do I have detailed charts and data on every single one of them? No, I'm sorry, I'm one person. And I don't have any software outside of Excel, and so I do my best. But I can honestly say I'm having a positive impact on probably 95% of those 500. And for somebody who maybe wants a little more job security, because that's the whole reason why I got into high school in the first place. One of my stops in my career was there for a single season of football. Didn't quite work out, and had to go look somewhere else. And that was with me with a wife and kid. That's not fair to them. And so I transitioned to high school. And if I have a team that has a bad season, and I have 18 more that have good seasons, that's a pretty good amount of job security. And I don't want to get into numbers, but I'm now at a point where I can support my family and provide their needs financially, and I'm able to do that. My wife works as well, and between the two of us, we have a good financial plan for our family and for our future. And lots of times at colleges, you may not get that. I know I got offered a job, head strength coach for a small college for $24,000 a year. Yeah, I've had friends that I had a friend who took a head Division II job, and he was $15,000 a year for football, and I think it was $400 a semester for every additional sport he took on. I don't know many places in America where you can support a family with that. And so if you want to help, if the college guys wants to help the high school guys, come join us at the high school. It was the best choice I've ever made in my career as a strength coach, was joining the high school ranks. And unless a college has a really freaking good offer, I'm probably not going to ever leave the high school ranks, because I love it. So college guys, come join us. If you're looking for a job and you're tired of doing the rat race, look into high schools. There's emergency certification programs so that you can be legal to teach in the state. That's what I did, finishing that up this semester for my teaching license. There's plenty of programs like that in all 50 states. Look into it. You might have to go through a little bit more school, but the rewards you get from that are pretty huge.
That's pretty awesome, man. Well, listen, Coach Clay, love it, bro. Appreciate your time, dude. Keep kicking ass down there, and we'll be in touch soon, bud.
Let's freaking go, man.
Yeah, man. Cheers to you.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate the opportunity, Coach.
Yeah, brother. Great to catch up. Talk to you. And a huge thanks to Clay Bewley for spending the time with us today, guys. I mean, we ask people to share and to be open, honest, and candid with their sharing. But what more could you ask for? A man who literally told us everything that they're doing from day one out the door, their progression, what his situation is, how that's impacted what they're doing, his principles, and what his primary objectives are, and how they're molding that all together. This was absolutely awesome. And Clay, I can't thank you enough for being so open, honest, and candid with your sharing and really everything you're doing for these young people, man. Keep up the great work, brother. It's really appreciated. And as always, guys, if you did enjoy the talk, please share it through the social media outlet of your choice, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it may be. As always, we're just trying to get the best information out there to all the great coaches that we can. And as always, guys, thank you for everything you do for us here at Central Virginia Sport Performance. We will be back next week with another awesome guest. We will see you then.